Welcome to María Alejandra OFF-TOPIC, the podcast about the non-musical things around music. My name is María Alejandra Jiménez, and I am a violinist, musician, and writer. Besides this podcast, in OFF-TOPIC, we also have a blog and a newsletter. Subscribe on your favorite audio platform so you never miss an episode. And if you want to explore more, visit mariaalejandra.com. Jimenez with J and with Z. Our guest today is Marcus Weiss, a musician, saxophonist, teacher, lecturer, and occasionally a curator of concerts and festival programs. With a professional career spanning over 30 years, he has been driven by a deep musical curiosity, a strong connection with fellow musicians, and an interest in philosophical and historical ideas. His work is shaped by a broader exploration of aesthetic questions and contexts that connect music to life, continually pushing him to expand the repertoire. Marcus is one of the leading international classical saxophonists. His repertoire covers the entire history of the instrument, from its impressionistic beginnings in France to contemporary works. Passionate about establishing the saxophone as a solo instrument in today's classical music world, he has played a crucial role in expanding its repertoire, premiering numerous new works by contemporary composers. As a soloist, he has collaborated with many European orchestras and ensembles and has been invited to prestigious festivals worldwide. He is also a dedicated chamber musician, performing with his two ensembles, Trio a Canto, alongside Nicholas Hodge in the piano and Christian Dierstein in the percussion, and Sasax, a saxophone quartet he co-founded with three colleagues in Paris. While Trio a Canto has been a key ensemble in contemporary chamber music over the past 2 decades, Sasax's repertoire spans from contemporary compositions to early Renaissance works and beyond. Now, on a more personal note, how do I know Marcus? Well, he was actually one of my teachers during my contemporary music studies in Basel, and I'm very happy to have him here today. His lectures were one of the most inspiring parts of my master's experience in this city. He has a unique way of connecting philosophical ideas, literature, and music, building bridges between different musical currents. He describes teaching as opening doors, and he certainly did that for me, expanding my artistic thinking in new ways. And today we are exploring a fascinating question. Is there a life beyond music? So, welcome Marcus, how are you?
Welcome Maria. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. After this long lecture of my life, looks like, there was something.
Yeah, I tried actually to cut as much as I could from the CV, but it was so interesting that I just wanted to share with everybody. I don't know if there is something that you would like to say or to add about yourself before we begin?
No, not especially. I mean, I'm all fine.
Perfect, great. Okay, so actually the first thing that I ask all the guests in this season is, do you have any recommendations to share? Like it can be a movie, a TV show, a book, a place to eat, or anything that you have been enjoying lately?
Lately, yeah. I mean, since September, the live music, live work is running. So I have seen many films that I could recommend. I was into Japanese films of the 60s lately, black and white, fantastic films. But I remember now, one thing that was really impressing me was a book that I read last summer that I think everybody should read. It is called L'arte della gioia, or probably translated The Art of Joy, by Goliarda Sapienza. Goliarda Sapienza, it's an incredible story. She was a Sicilian writer, born, I think, in the 20s or 10s of the 20th century, and in a communist family in Catholic traditional Sicily, and she wrote this book, and it's just fantastic. I cannot tell the story of the book. It's a story of this woman that is probably a little bit her and a little bit, but it's a fantastic story of growing up in the oldest times and becoming going through modernity and through all the 20th century. So that's really a fantastic book. It's a couple of 100 pages, and it's the kind of book that you read, you finish it, and you just want to take the next one of that kind. But it doesn't exist, the next one. You have to find it again.
Is it like a fiction book, like a novel?
It's a novel, yeah. It's a novel. Okay. It's beautiful, it's colorful, it's very Sicilian in a way, very dense, very emotional, very intellectual. It's also the story really of a woman, and it's and of all these. It's kind of a feministic. It's not feministic, but it's a woman's book. It's fantastic, really, absolutely must. And it was. When she wrote it for 20, 30 years, I remember it was just not edited. And then somebody in Paris read it and translated it. And since then it's translated to all languages and also edited in Italy. So again, an incredible story of a book.
Very cool. I will look for it because I was looking for something to read a bit different. Also, I want to start reading in Italian, so probably I should try to get it in Italian and read it because it doesn't sound like it's very long. So maybe I should give it a try.
No, I read it in German. I must say, but it's 600 pages, and I should try in Italian. But
Great, thank you for this recommendation.
Welcome.
And I take because so far when I talked with the guests, they say so many interesting things. That for every episode I made a list of recommendations and I will add it to the description.
Very good.
So this will be there for people so they can look for it. And this will be actually the first episode of the series. And normally I have very specific topics to talk with the guests. And I want to always go a bit beyond music, but since it's the first episode of this season, I wanted to ask you, what is your first memory associated with music? You have one?
It's a very... I don't have one, no, I don't. I mean, there was music around. My father listened a lot to symphonies, to Beethoven symphonies, at home, of course, we didn't have an orchestra, and to Bach organ music. So he was kind of into that German music, and so there was a lot of music around always. My mother went to the symphony concert. She had an abonnement of the symphony, and she talked about it. But listening to music, I must say, it's difficult. I remember, actually, now it comes, the first, not connected to music making, but I remember, and probably I was about 8, it was the Beatles on the radio. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, do. You know, that they played it all day long. I had the impression... It was, that was new then, the Beatles. There was before, was the first kind of pop band, of course, of history that came in the Swiss radio. So that came a lot. And also something I remember that was connected to music was also radio. That was I was, as a young boy, I was maybe 8 or 9, and all the songs were about love. And I was just saying, what is this thing with love? They always think about, so boring. So I was really, that I remember. It's less maybe musical remembrance. But my first kind of own music things was when I started to play the clarinet. And I was probably 9 or so. And I played for myself. I improvised, folk melodies, whatever melodies I knew, and improvised a little. That's my first own musical memory. I didn't have a kind of a key inspiration hearing Beethoven Symphony when I was 5 or something. I don't know.
No, but also like coming back to something that you say before, like I find very interesting this thing, like all the songs were about love, and somehow you felt did you feel maybe that it was not really something that speak about something that you could really relate to at that moment?
Yeah.
Like you missed something in that.
It's maybe not that I missed, but I just didn't understand. Of course, as when you are 9 or so, love is still a bit far away. I mean, you love your mother, but you don't have a relationship. I actually had a girlfriend when I was in the first class, but that was still very, friendly, let's say. And I just thought, wow, life or the world is so full of things, of things I don't understand. How can they speak about only that all the time? As if music would transport things that are interesting for people. But seemingly the only interesting thing in a song was love. And I just didn't know, I mean.
Yeah, I think like I had a similar experience, maybe not with music per se, but in general my connection with culture and art, there is such a huge place that is given to romantic love.
Yeah.
And especially when you're at least in my case, when I was watching like the movies for teenagers or this kind of children movies, children going to teenagers, this kind of high school drama, so to speak, they're always revolving around love. Yeah. And for me was also kind of confusing because like even being so young, I was experiencing things that were way more, I wouldn't say richer, but I needed to understand other things about my life. I was not finding the references on music or art.
I mean, love starts when you are 13, 14, I don't know. You feel this first maybe kind of attraction, this kind of initiation to adult life. And of course, later you understand that you want to sing about that because you don't sing about war and things that happen in the street or so, but this love, this feeling, but not. And if you take medieval song, I mean,
they're still about this l'amour courtois.
The mine was the only or one of the only topics. Yeah. So it goes back.
It goes really back in history. Yeah. And and also it's funny because if I think about my first memories with music, they are very related also to the radio. Yeah. Like I was listening, it was like probably my first memory of music was my dad bringing us to not even preschool. It was really like maternal care. Yeah. Like really, I'm talking 3 years old, 4 years old, and putting the radio in the morning. Yeah. And listening to what it was there. This is also probably my first music related.
It's funny, because I mean we didn't. Of course, when I was young, I mean, that was in the 60s, there was still, people would still sing a little bit, but not really so much. I mean, we did sing at school, but I wouldn't consider that's music. That's just a social thing. Yeah. So I didn't sing in a choir or anything. And at church, I was not so strong at church. So there was no music and we were not going to concerts, and my family was not in a marching band, and there was no folk music around because we were around the city. Yeah. So the radio.
It was the radio.
It's really funny. Yeah.
Same for me. Like I don't come from like there are not really artists in my family, even though there are a lot of people in my family that I think they could have been great artists because they are very sensitive and creative. So like culture was not really a thing in my life as a kid. So most of it came from the radio and from television basically. And then it's interesting because also coming from South America, there was another thing related to music that was very present, that was dancing. Sure. So dancing was definitely a big part of my beginnings with music.
Yeah, that comes quickly then. I mean, of course, the disco, the endless Jugenddiskothek where you go and you meet a girl the first time, and then you dance and you sweat, and then it's kind of that's very strong. And then of course all the records you get, all the rock and pop, and then also jazz and other musics that came a bit later, of course.
Yes, and then this is like the big question of the podcast, and I don't know how we can reply to that. But is there a life beyond music for you in this case, or how would you
I mean,
avoid that?
it's really a difficult question.
Yes.
Because I'm not. Maybe people see me as a fanatic of music, but it's kind of, it's like, is there life without air or without water? It seems to me, for me it's music. Everything, I don't make the differentiation between job and hobby. My hobby is music and my job is music, and some parts of music in my life are about money earning and about, they are more work, let's say. So I would maybe sometimes teach a bit less if I would be asked, do you want to teach today? I would say, oh, maybe today not. But I have to, because I have to earn my money and I love it.
Yeah.
But of course, and then it's really difficult to say something intelligent. Of course, I relate, let's say, there is a lot, or the whole life is also outside of music. But I integrate everything into that music because it's my main focus, and all my lecture, all my thoughts, all my kind of feelings and perceptions, I relate them to music. But I love many things. I love to be in the nature. I love to be in the south. I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to read. I love to walk. I love to talk. And not at all about music. So I'm not a fanatic.
Yeah, of course.
But I cannot imagine. I'm just too much into it. It's like,
Yeah, I understand, because also, like, when you are a musician, somehow most of your important life experience are in a way or another are derivated from the music, either from music making or from music listening or from meeting other musicians, and it becomes a huge part of life.
That's maybe something I would say I very much like also to be with non-musicians. Because sometimes I'm a bit fed up with being only in the bubble and only, usually with musicians, you know that we don't speak about music all the time. But it's this kind of being with musicians is being inside a certain world. And I like very much to be with whatever other people I like or I can relate to. So, but for me, music is definitely, since the beginning of the 19th century, I don't know who wrote this text of the German philosophers, but that they were saying that art has taken a little bit the place of religion. And I must say that's clearly my case. Maybe there are musicians, they do it only for money, but I think most musicians, somewhere, it is a deep necessity to do music and to be a musician, but to be a musician, I don't know, but to do music, to be with music, maybe like for people that believe in God, to be in church or to be believing. I would say I believe in music. That may be my statement.
Very, very interesting. Also, this thing of being with non-musicians.
Yeah.
Because, I grew up in Venezuela, and I started music through El Sistema.
Yeah.
So the El Sistema is this orchestra education system that we have in Venezuela. And I have to say that in my school, like my normal school, I was feeling quite alienated.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was going to the orchestra, I was feeling like I was surrounded with people
inside.
I felt like I belonged to something. But then when I moved to Europe, I had a bit the opposite experience. I felt a bit alienated among musicians, and more time passed, the more I felt the need to connect with people that are non-musicians, and I would say that being with non-musician is a huge part of my life right now, because when you start also playing for other people professionally, it's difficult to go out from this idea that we have to like we are playing for other musicians. We very often are in the mindset a bit that we are playing for other musicians, and I feel, at least my experience, that I was quite out of touch of this idea of I'm playing for people. In
sure.
general.
No, that's of course, but that's a special case in, I would say, in contemporary music, in the contemporary music scene, that it is often a very small and specialized scene where at least half of the audience often are musicians, of course.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Yeah, sure.
And then also about this thing of art as a religion, I think that's pretty much the case. Like, I feel like nowadays our Greek or Roman gods are the pop artists or the actors or this kind of pop people in general, very famous people.
Or for us, some composers maybe, or artists of the writers. Yeah, of course. I mean, there is this wonderful, that's why I say this, a wonderful little book by Milan Kundera, I think, Milan Kundera, The Art of the Novel, where he writes about all of this pre-European or say like pre-modern things with religion and all the religious fights, and where finally, I think it's at the end of one chapter, he says, "I believe in Cervantes." Like a statement like, I believe in the Bible. No, I believe in the one that wrote the first novel, in the first individual view of the world, which is really an incredible thing. Of course, there were other novels maybe, but like somebody that signs a book, Cervantes is really a symbol for, and the novel is still, in our strange times today, to be really individual and to have a very individual vision of things becomes even political again, and I think we have to fight for that and to keep that going. And so, but of course, that's not, when I say I believe in music, it's more general. It's not so much a political statement. I just say I relate everything, all my lectures and all my thoughts are somehow, some are connected to what I want to do, about my feelings, and about also maybe not business, but what do I want to develop. And as long as I have the feeling I'm alive, as long as I play new music, like new pieces, as long as I believe, there's maybe somebody out there, composer with whom I can develop something together, or who can write something for me, for my instrument, and that brings me forward, and all my readings also, let's say, of philosophy, philosophical texts or difficult texts sometimes, I try at least, or I see them as related to me being a musician, but not being a saxophonist or the musician. I mean, I'm quite radical. I say, like most musicians, I count myself in, are craftsmen and craftswomen, and not artists. I think somebody, if every good cook would also be an artist, every good craftsman. No, musicians are Kunsthandwerker. They are artists, sometimes of very high level, putting a lot of energy in something, but somebody that plays even on the highest level, for me, the same 20 concertos all life long, I don't know. Maybe he's an artist or she's an artist, but I think this is really craft, and I'm proud of that, and all my teaching is very much connected to that craft, in the largest sense, to understand not only how to do it, but also maybe why, and to extend that. And that's why, I mean, that what I read and reflect is a bit connected to actually to being a musician, or for me the other way around, being a human being in my form is I'm a musician, but I could also be somebody else or another profession. I would probably be the same. I don't know. Yeah.
That's very interesting, because at the beginning I was talking about not coming from a family of artists, but there is a lot of artistic potential in a lot of people from my family, and actually what there is not in my family is this kind of craftsmanship that I chose to get better at my craft, that is playing the violin. But then there are certain things sometimes when I even read like the WhatsApp messages of my mom, or when I see my dad does these kind of little drawings everywhere. I don't know if I would call it art, but there is a creative act in these kind of daily things, and I think this is inherent to being a human. I think.
Of course, we are crafts people, but we want to create, we want to recreate, of course. And I mean, a very, very good interpretation of a written composition somehow needs, of course, an artistic side or a creative side in your craft. But I think often it's a bit over-evaluated, like, compared to other people that are doing incredible things and are a bit under-evaluated maybe in their profession.
I totally agree with this, because I've been thinking a lot lately on what is the role of creativity in performing a classical music piece. And of course, to a certain extent, there is some sort of creativity, but sometimes I think that probably a person that writes a song with 2 or 3 chords, with the lyrics and everything, there is somehow more creativity on that.
I think so. I mean, if you think the typical kind of education of a musician to become an orchestra musician today, I mean, this is incredible. The level of playing, the level of competition is incredible. But you can get there, you can learn that. Of course, you have to be good, you have to be gifted. But there are many, 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 many who can do it. So it's not so much an individual thing, but it's just work. You do that, you learn your craft, you learn your orchestra parts, and you play it, and you learn how to present them, and then you get your job. And in the worst case, you can just sit there from age 25 to your pension and play through the repertoire. And creation is really not demanded from you at that point. Which, I mean, it's incredible to be an orchestra musician, to be able to play in a great orchestra, and I'm sure there are as many artists in there as there are non-artists. But the fact that you can just really learn it if you have, of course, the chance to have early education, to have enough money at home to get an instrument, to get a good teacher, a good school, and so forth. I mean, it takes some things, but it's not about personal creativity. It's just education.
It's just education. Yeah, and I have an interesting observation about that, because very often, like, I explained this a bit also for the non-musicians that are listening to this podcast. When you want to play if you want to play for a professional orchestra, you have to perform in auditions that are a sort of competition in which there is a panel of juries from the orchestra that judge your playing, and then they select you to play with the orchestra. So you go through this kind of process, and very often the process to get admitted in an orchestra is very long, because you have to do hundreds of auditions to start getting invited, to get invited and pass the round, then you start passing the round, but maybe you don't get to the finals. Like, it's a very long process, and very often these auditions required a very specific repertoire, and you have to have it at the highest level. But then, for example, I had the experience of playing in the orchestras in Venezuela with children. Like I was playing Mahler symphonies when I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And it's insane for me because actually in an orchestra with children that doesn't have the technical abilities that
Skills,
people
yeah.
have, or the skills that people have after graduating from a music university in
Yeah.
Europe or in America, or people that don't have great instruments or great teachers, people
Yeah.
that come from very also poor backgrounds. Sometimes this orchestra sounds way better than a lot of professional orchestras in Europe. And this is very impressive because actually I realized that very often playing in an orchestra is not really about your individual skill as a musician or technical abilities or instrument as we might think because of the process we go through, but actually it's a lot also about your ability to play with other people, to be in the
Sure.
community, and how you deal with this balance between giving your input but also reacting to what's going on around you. And for me this is very interesting because eventually I think that all this orchestra's audition is just a kind of artifice, it's not real.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
incredible. And
it's
then you
really-
hear
it's real.
that there are 500 inscriptions for one job of a flute or a violin, and then they take 30, and then for the audition, they audition 30 people audition, and then in the end they don't take somebody.
Yes.
They postpone it. Because of these 500, probably 100 could get the job without any problem from their, but that's a whole different story. That's,
Yes.
of course, a story about psychology of the orchestra.
Yeah, it's a system that is based on something that I think that is not real. It's a kind of, I don't know.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated. And then also I had a kind of realization, I don't know, in a lesson, because I was in a music history lesson when I was studying in Lausanne. And the teacher in that moment, he was saying that, like composers think the world through music. And in that moment, I actually realized that I think the world through words and not through music. And it's been very interesting for me to see like that maybe I'm more of a writer than a musician, because for me, I don't have this experience of life. Like I feel like I think the world through words and not really through music.
Yeah,
So
I don't know what I could say if I see the world through music. I could maybe say I think the world with music.
Yes.
Something like that. It's all influencing, of course. For me, I can say also how I came to the saxophone. I really wanted to play the saxophone when I was very young. I don't remember why. When I was 9, we went to music school, and I already told my mother. She told me later that I wanted to play the saxophone, and I told her I want to become a saxophone professor when I was 9. So at that time, probably I just knew professor. For me, that was the highest thing you can get. Like professor is the guy with the glasses that knows everything. And saxophone was, I don't know where I have the saxophone from. It must be from some TV film, Glenn Miller story or something. I don't know. But then at music school, they told me, no, saxophone you can learn later. But first you have to learn a real instrument, which is a clarinet. So I had to do the clarinet that I just didn't want to play. I liked it, and then I found the bass clarinet, and I liked that. And then later on, I started the saxophone when I was 14, and then it was all clear. So why do I say that? There was this obsession with this instrument, and I went into classical music. And why with saxophone? There's no classical saxophone. There's no repertoire, but there was a saxophone school, at least a way of a French school of saxophone playing, which was not about a repertoire, but it was about a way of playing straight and in tune and everything. And I went through that, and by chance, the only German-speaking teacher in the world was here in Basel, my teacher, Ivan Roth, so I studied with him. And then the saxophone became kind of a, I was not a missionary of the saxophone, but you must find your own way with that instrument.
Yeah.
There is no given way, so I was much more into developing it myself. But already soon I understood that, yeah, I'm interested in music in general and not in saxophone so much. I mean, of course, but it was really a medium for me. So maybe I should have changed to a real instrument early and gotten a real repertoire. But then it was clear I had to do something about it. And then that was maybe then a bit my path in the next 40 years. You know? One of the last things that I really, for me, was a highlight, if you want, when I was 50, I'm now over 60, and when I was 55 or so, I had one night, because we worked together in a project with Peter Eötvös, and I had the idea a week after, I could ask him if he wouldn't write a saxophone concerto, maybe that would be great. For my 60th birthday, that's how I wrote it to him then, an email. Wouldn't you be interested in writing a saxophone concerto for my 60th birthday? So he found that funny and he said, yeah, talk to my agent, you know. And then of course, so it was fine, he did it, and it took 3 or 4 years until the piece came, and then it was financed, you know, you always need to find money and to find orchestras, and I had the chance to do that also with him. That was really... Actually, now maybe it's a highlight, you know, that I played this in Basel, actually, here with him conducting. We played it in Cologne, in the north.
I think I was in that concert.
Maybe, yes. I played it in France, in Lille, and then in Basel with Peter Eötvös. And yeah, that was kind of, but like more a symbol. For me, it was a symbol. I thought Eötvös is a modern composer, you know, somebody an incredible musician, but a real practical musician who worked with Stockhausen in the beginning. Then Boulez got him as the first conductor to take over Intercontemporain. Imagine, you know, I mean, Boulez getting a young Hungarian to conduct and so forth. And his music is, of course, not contemporary music in an avant-garde style, but it's in a, let's say, how do they call it now? Concert hall style. That's what I have read lately for kind of
that's a really cool term.
New music that works for a bit for everybody. So that is not new, but in a modern language. And I read that. I read that concert hall style. So it's not a style, of course, but it's a good word. And that was for me a highlight. But that was already the end of the row. So I'm very happy with my trio. I had incredible performance pieces to play. A piece by Georgia Pergis, piece by Riem, piece by Lachenmann, by Misato Mochizuki now lately, by Rebecca Saunders. I mean, it's all gifts. You work a lot to play it, but it's like a gift to have it and to it's a musical thought. It's a musical moment, but it's really something. That's the funny thing about these compositions. You know, they stay. They stay. They are the like a, how do you say
like
a screenshot of some moment that maybe that you share, but of some time of the scene of aesthetic discourses and so forth. And of course, I started that maybe 1990, maybe 35 years ago, and a lot happened in that time. Really, when you are in, then it's always the same. It's like looking at the mirror every morning. More or less, you always see the same person. But then you see a photo from 5 years ago, and you say, "Wow, I was completely different." So with the music, it's a bit that too. That it has changed a lot, but. Of course, there are so many different individuals of composers, so many different stylistic differences, aesthetic differences that, we could speak about that longly. You know, But
yeah, we will have to do another episode of the podcast talking only about experiences with composers
about extended
over
techniques.
these years. Yeah.
No, we were for many years. We played with Yukiko Sugawara for 20 years. She was married to Helmut Lachenmann. She still is, as far as I know. And so we were a little bit for the first 20 years also the chamber music tryout trio for the class of Lachenmann, which of course was incredible because we the whole discourse that he held with his students came into our chamber music. I was really at the front of this type of extended technique, but not only about that. It's not that. It's a way of musical thinking that really goes from the sound, from the action, from the instruments, from the whole poetry is developed on all this. It's not purely technical now. Let's find the new sound. I mean,
I find it like when you perform Lachenmann for the first time, it's a very fascinating experience because that comes across straight. You can really see straight that these extended techniques are the result of a musical / poetical thought.
Yeah,
it's not just writing the extended technique for the sake of writing an extended technique. And how do you see how do you observe the contemporary music world now?
That's another podcast.
That's another episode, yes.
but I think, short answer would be until 2000, the extended techniques or the question of the material, die Frage nach dem Materialstand was the central thing in a certain region of the German avant-garde. And since then, it is not anymore. And this kind of new music 2.0 is whatever you call it. It takes this extended techniques with it, but it's not the center. It's now about multidisciplinarity. It's about. You can take the little article of Jenny Walshe. The New Discipline, that's a very good little article on 2 pages that describes exactly this new paradigm. What I like a lot to say is that a lot of the new music, the very new, in Germany, England, France, wherever in the European avant-garde, is music about music. So it's kind of a postmodern thing, even more than before. It's not that the composer develops a new vision, a new material, opening up into a new, but you take old things and you rework it. So music with music, music about music, that's what happens.
This is really, it's very funny because I observed this thing of music about music, even in pop music nowadays. I see it more and more like artists, they are doing these albums where they mix all the genres, all reference, it's a reference, if musical references about the musical references, and I see it both contemporary music, in pop music, in rock, and I think that's really interesting what is going on because it's kind of a reflection on history in a way, no?
It's really a looking back even more. Since the invention of history in the 19th century, this has been present somehow, But I think, take Berio's Sinfonia, which is really an incredible postmodern piece. It's from 1968. It's already, how much is that? It's more than 50 years ago. It's quite crazy. For the 100th birthday of the New York Phil or something.
I'm thinking also of the piece of Simon Steen-Andersen, Berio.
That's a very dedicated, typical piece of that type of music, and I think it's all fine. Especially Simon Steen-Andersen, he is an incredibly gifted and not sarcastic, but maybe ironic. But there's always new things creating, also with this reflection of music about music. So it will go on. But I also think still there is probably still hope. Musicians, composers out there that believe in sound and rhythm and instruments, and that can imagine a new music that does not need any citation or any video or any robots or any performance or any striptease or whatever.
For instance, this is a very like today reference,
Yeah.
but now with the, I don't know if you know the Tiny Desk concerts. Like in the Tiny Desk concerts, there are from classical musicians to pop musicians performing in a really small space, one take, acoustic most of the time. And it's very interesting to see what results from that is just acoustic. And I think there are new things also developing right now, especially coming from the early 2000s, in which especially pop music was extremely produced. This was this kind of clean, stereo sound, very American, I would say, and now we are coming back to this kind of imperfection, this kind of plastic sound, and we are coming back to this kind of more imperfect acoustic.
That's funny.
thing.
Maybe I discovered myself. Maybe I'm just of an older generation in that respect. But where things come together in a very short argument, COVID times was Zoom. Zoom started. I hate Zoom. And then we had to teach on Zoom and stuff. And I realized my readings at that time were a lot about phenomenology. And that exactly brought me to the anti-Zoom thing, and it brings me also away from this kind of new music somehow. And I really believe in the body playing an instrument in that, and live, and in this live moment. Because in phenomenology, they speak of the hybrid body. Like there is not only a view of the world that is very reduced on a dualism of subject and object, but in the middle between the subject world inside me and the object world out there is one thing that is both, and that's my body. Because my body is the body I am and the body I have. It's an object and a subject. And music making is nothing else but making this object or this subject object the theater, the center of the world. And I really think it has quite a political dimension to feature this side of the live musician and live music, because of course on a large scale live music is only available for a few people, to go to chamber music concert, to see 4 people play Beethoven's String Quartet or whatever contemporary piece. But I think if you can see that once, you can open some ideas in your horizon, because that's the greatest thing that there is for me as a musician.
Yeah, there is an expression that Argentinians say a lot, that is poner el cuerpo, like putting the body, no?
Putting the body, yeah.
And I find it very interesting, especially nowadays with all these crazy things going on with artificial intelligence, like people is talking about, of course these are very powerful tools and we will see how they develop,
they will.
But I feel like the need that we humans have for putting the body,
even if we will use, first of all, it's not intelligent, it's just computing,
it's just data,
it's just data, whatever. But if you take the body, because our eyes are not cameras and our ears are not microphones, it's not like that is a pure reduced view of the world. And I think as we can have the most incredible intelligence, but in the end we have our body, and we have to take care of that, and we live through it. And making music, we can share many things that are connected with that level. And I think people understand a lot more than words could ever do through music, because we share bodies. Yeah. Because words, of course, words also need a body. Words need a voice. It's also a body. But somehow the words appeal a lot to the brain. Whereas the music, the vibration of the sound, the movement of the musicians on stage and so forth, that's a direct, not only picture, but, that's a little world in the big world. Yeah. And I think, so thanks to this COVID and Zoom situation, I'm kind of happy to put myself on a stage and play for some people. Of course, it would be nice to play for thousands and so forth, but the live quality goes lost, of course, if you play with microphones and everything. It's more and
Yes.
more.
Great. So I think we can close this part of the podcast with this reflection on putting the body and
Yeah.
having relationship with actual bodies and not with
Only brains.
only brains. Yes. But before we wrap up, I have a little game prepared for the guests. And the idea is that the people that is listening get to know you better. I don't know if you would like to
So
participate.
you want me to make a striptease?
No. no, nothing like that. So actually it's very simple. The first one is just 5 questions, this or that. And you have to choose one of the options.
Okay.
And then we will do a little game. I have prepared 20 words.
Yeah.
And I will just say them. And by associations of ideas, you have to say the first thing that comes to your mind. It can be another word or a sentence or whatever. So here we start. So, this or that. So, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Mountains or the sea?
The sea.
Morning person or night person?
Morning person.
Comedy or drama?
Drama.
Drama. And the last one is to travel alone or to travel with other people?
No, with other people.
With other people.
Yeah.
Great. And yeah, so now I have 20 words prepared. I will just read them and say the first thing that comes to your mind. We can cut if there is something that you don't like.
Okay.
So here we go. Memory.
It's my word.
Yes. Music.
Everything.
Silence.
Wonderful.
Color.
Blue and green.
Freedom.
Yes.
Love.
As much as possible.
Chaos.
Sometimes necessary.
Journey.
Journey to a nice place.
Home.
Home. A nice place.
Rhythm.
Written.
Rhythm, like rhythm, ritmo.
Redeem. Ritmo.
Sí.
Salsa.
Dream.
Dream. Quietness.
Change.
Change. Always good.
Voice.
Fritz Wunderlich.
Root.
Root. I don't know.
Fear.
War.
Future.
Will hopefully not be war.
Connection.
See people.
Art.
Art. Art, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, art is everything. Art.
Art is everything, can be also the
Yeah,
answer.
I mean, yeah. I don't see an object in art. Art is life.
Pleasure.
Wonderful evening with nice people.
Pain.
My arthrose in my right knee.
Oh no. Failure.
Failure. Failure, many failures. What could failure be? Failure. To be sensitive towards your beloved.
And the last one is success.
It's always fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so now we are coming to the end of this episode. But before we say goodbye, I would like to ask you, what's the best advice you have ever received? or if there is any advice that you would like to share with our listeners about love, life, music, creativity, anything.
Wow, I don't feel very wise. I mean, I have so many questions, and I still read, I think, and do things to learn as if I would be a beginner. I really have that. I know more things. Of course, I know more things, and we know that when you know more, you know less, and so forth. But I don't want to. There could be.
I think that's
difficult to say. Really, I don't want to be a wise person.
I think that's very beautiful on its own. No, like.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so many things to people all the time. You should do this, you should do that, as a teacher.
Yeah, of course.
And I always try to say, this is just an option, Or when I teach Baroque music, I say, I'm not a specialist. I think some things I tell you, I know some things you shouldn't do when you play this and that piece. And that's kind of my advice to most people, it's all connection, it's all context, and there's no truth. And in a context, something that can be true in another context can be wrong. It doesn't mean that it's completely arbitrary, but it's quite broad.
Yeah, I think that's very necessary, especially in today's world that is so polarized, when people have always an opinion on everything, and they want to know everything, and they think they know everything. I think it's important really to kind of come back to this thing in which I actually don't know, and context.
Yeah, let's discuss it. Let's speak about it, and because all the kind of things we pin on a thing with one word, and that's maybe why I'm a musician. I never thought about that, but of course musicians can also have a meaning about everything. But we don't mean, when we play a phrase, we don't mean it like this. Maybe in a minute we could play it a bit different, It's something, it's always in movement, and it always depends on where, with whom, what, the day, what was,
Great. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I really liked having you in the podcast. It will be the first episode, so I'm very happy to share soon.
An honor.
Yes. So where people can learn more about your work, and are there any projects that you would like to share in the future, or something in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I could quickly say I had a trio with Nick Hodges and Christian Dierstein some years, I mean, since 33 years, and since 13 years with Nick. And this is now a pre-announcement, because we will announce the change of the trio. But I can say that now. I mean, will not be so public. We will change. That's, of course, in my thing is important. We will change the pianist. There will be a new pianist in the trio from the fall, and we have a very big project that I'm working on since a year about disparition. What is disparition?
I don't know.
Vanishing of the species,
Okay. Yes.
Of animals, by biodiversity. So we choose 10 animals. We have 10 composers, and we will do a first big project on that, which is called The Last of Their Kind, or of their kin.
Incredible.
And that's a big project, and I'm very much looking forward to that, and I hope this will bring some...
If there is some news about the project by the time I publish it, I will put it also in the description if people want to go buy tickets, whatever.
We'll play for whoever wants us.
Yes. And to you who are listening, thank you for joining us in this episode of María Alejandra Off-Topic. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you want to share any comments or questions, feel free to write to me. You will find the contact form on my website. Remember that you can find more content like this on the Off-Topic blog and newsletter. Subscribe on your favorite audio platform so you don't miss the next episode. And if you want to be part of our community, visit mariaalejandrajimenez.com. Jimenez with J and with Z. Finally, if you like this episode, Please share it with your favorite people and or leave us a rating on your podcast platform. This helps me a lot to keep growing and creating more episodes like this one. For supporting, you can also buy me a coffee. The link is in the description. And that's it for today. See you next time for more off-topic conversations. Bye!
Bye bye.